15 minutes past 9 a.m. this morning, right here on News and Views on this beautiful day of Jummah. It is the day of Friday, the blessed day of Friday as well. And this hour of News and Views is sponsored by Africa Muslims Agency, a beacon of hope to communities for over 35 years in Africa and beyond. Now, still to come on the show this morning is we will be taking a look as to what is happening in Lebanon, in Beirut in particular, and we are led to believe that Beirut is being decimated. There is nowhere else left to go. Israel is now relentless in its bombing campaign. More than 1 million civilians that are trapped in Beirut, and the great fears of massacres happening, like we have seen in Gaza. And as we approach 1 year of the anniversary of the genocide that is unfolding in Gaza, October the 7th, there is just so much more that we will be covering this morning. We will be taking a look at the various solidarity organizations leading powerful pro-Palestinian rallies, walks for freedom as well, marking 1 year since October the 7th. And on Monday, we wish to remind you that Salam Media will be dedicating the entire day on October the 7th to unpacking, to analyzing, and to bring you what we have been covering relentlessly, non-stop in the last year at Salam Media, covering the genocide that is unfolding and great fears as to what is likely to happen in Lebanon. And this is the reason why this morning we are going straight to Lebanon. We are going to be joined by Lebanese news producer Ibrahim Zayat. Ibrahim, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, and we thank you for your time.
Walaikum salam and good morning.
Yes, Ibrahim, obviously a huge concern at this point in time, and looking at Beirut, the southern suburbs in particular, reduced to rubble by these non-stop, relentless Israeli strikes. And I'm sure at this point in time, Beirut must be a ghost town.
Exactly. Good morning again. What we're facing right now in Lebanon, bombing, Israel is bombing everywhere. I have faced bombing for 11 months in south, and now it's moving to Beirut after this. What I can say, barbaric attack by the Israeli army in our country. Uh, it's been horrible 10 days or 11 days, I can say. Beirut, southern suburbs are a ghost town right now. All people are evacuated. Israel is bombing like a monster, I can say. Uh, Everything we can see is destruction, is a new genocide. They didn't get thirst of the blood in Gaza. They're now moving to Lebanon. Last night in West Bank, this is continuing, and no one is stopping Israel.
Yes,
Uh,
and just
yeah, yeah.
just looking at Beirut, obviously it is very, very tightly packed. In fact, when you look at the residential areas, I mean, very, very close. And what we've seen again, the justification on the part of this occupying entity, as they've done in Gaza as well, saying that these are targeted attacks, targeted against Hezbollah. But we know what has happened in Gaza, where 90% of Gaza has been reduced to rubble, and I'm sure great, great, great fears of another Gaza situation evolving in Beirut.
Exactly. We already started to see this last night or the night before. They bombed an ambulance center in Beirut, killing 9 medics, claiming that this is a Hezbollah center. While journalists go there, we have seen an ambulances, medicines, and no rockets. Uh, this is what we're seeing. Last night, the bombing in southern suburbs was one of the strongest since the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. This is a new Gaza. Even this morning, Israel was just bombed the main border crossing border that connects Lebanon to Syria, which is Al Masna crossing border. This for more than 10 days have been the main point for hundreds of thousands of Lebanese and Syrians to pass with and go to Syria for a safer place. So this the our main crossing border to Syria and for the rest of the Arab world have been bombed yesterday this morning by Israel. This is a new genocide. We can all agree on this.
Yes, Ibrahim. In fact, you say it is a new genocide, but the modus operandi is exactly the same as we've seen in Gaza. You speak about the ambulances, and you're looking at the paramedics and those ambulance workers that have been killed, and we've seen the same modus operandi in Gaza as well. The targeted hospitals in the guise of command centers for Hamas, and I'm sure exactly the same excuses that have been given, or the reasoning by this occupying entity in
Exactly.
terms of bombing infrastructure that is absolutely important, critical infrastructure like hospitals as well. We've seen what they've done with communications, and I'm sure all of that is a problem. And again, trapping people in an area where there is nowhere to go, there is nowhere to run.
Exactly. Talking about and Gaza and the excuses, I think they are now reached a level where they are not even giving excuses for all their crimes. Today, this morning, during a tour for the journalists in the southern suburbs of Beirut, Israeli occupation army, targeted them by a drone missile. A group of journalists who has nothing to do, only to cover news, they were targeted by the Israeli army. Some of them were injured. This is what they're doing. Some of the hospitals in in Beirut, southern suburbs, and in south of Lebanon have been evacuated because Israeli army was at bombing near to them. Last night, one of the evacuation requests done by the Israeli army was only 100 meters away from a very main hospital in in southern suburbs of Beirut, in the Dahi, and it's only 100 meters. It's a Santa Rez hospital where we have seen footage going viral online for the damage because of that airstrikes. They have no red lines for now. Are
Well,
bombing next to hospitals, next to schools, next to international crossing borders where people, hundreds of thousands of people are using every day. No limits.
Well, look here. What we've seen is they've basically crossed all lines. Like you mentioned, is there are no red lines, and we've also seen bombings take place about a kilometer away from the official Lebanese parliament as well, from the home of the prime minister. So nowhere is safe at this point in time, Ibrahim.
Exactly. There is no safe place. I've moved on the first day of the escalation of the war in 23rd of September. I've moved from south to Beirut. And then on the day of the killing of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, I've moved from my home on the borders on the suburbs of the southern suburbs of Beirut, where they started to bomb. I have bombs near to my home in south and bombs near to my home in Beirut. Now I'm like hundreds of displaced uh, uh, Lebanese people and Syrian people as well in Lebanon, who have forced by the Israeli army to leave their homes and move to somewhere else. And here the main reason what I believe is there's no international stopping to Israel. Israel is getting a full support by US, a full support by Europe. There's double standards when it comes to Israel and other countries doing only 0.1% of Israel is doing in Palestine and in Lebanon and even as well in Syria. And the past week, Israel have bombed Syria for more than 3 or 4 times, just crossing
Yes,
all international laws.
Yes, Ibrahim, I just want to focus a bit on the likely scenarios that are obviously playing out. We know that these cowardly attacks are taking place from the air through with their fighter jets dropping bombs on Beirut, but
Yes.
also all this talk about a ground invasion and the scenario in the event of a ground invasion. Now, we know Israel obviously defeated, they were horribly defeated, I think, in 2006 by Hezbollah. They haven't forgotten this. They haven't forgiven Hezbollah, and we don't expect them to forgive Hezbollah for this. But again, a very different scenario from what is likely to happen in Lebanon as opposed to Gaza, because Gaza obviously is surrounded from all sides, and Hezbollah obviously will not be standing back as well in the event of a ground invasion. We learned 2 days ago about eight IDF soldiers that were actually killed and they needed to be evacuated, obviously by helicopter as well. So all of this actually playing out, and I'm sure the ground invasion may obviously yield very, very different results.
Yeah. Back to 1982, Israel said that we can invade and occupy Lebanon by a musical group. Now it's not a troop anymore for the Israelis. When we get back to 2006, Israel was not even able to enter three villages. And we remember 2006, we remember to trust what Hezbollah said. In 2006, Israel said that they occupied Bint Jbel. It's a small town near to the borders, while Hezbollah was denying this news. And at the end of the war, we discovered that Hezbollah was saying the truth. And that's why uh, when Israel is saying that they are entering some villages, we are, at least from the journalists, even there, the independent journalists still covering at the borders, Hezbollah is doing a hard fight to defend the villages. It's very serious that Netanyahu is leading the whole region to a big war, and that's what can keep him in the prime minister position. But Hezbollah fighters in South Lebanon have another word. They are fighting. They're giving all of what they have, all the power they have to defend these villages, these small villages that one of the biggest armies in the world is not able to enter. Last night, Hezbollah sources, or officially through their military media, they announced that their fighters killed 17 Israeli soldiers, although Israel only announced the death of eight. The fighting is still going around main villages, or what we can say that the easiest one to enter the south from, because the geography of Gaza is way different than South Lebanon. In South Lebanon, we have mountains, hills, a very hard type of this nature that make it more harder for the Israeli army to enter into South Lebanon. Even moving a bit into some villages, this don't make any kind of win or victory for the IDF. And we're still talking about 3 days or 4 days of the ground invasion, and Israel was not able to even take control of one neighborhood of these small villages.
Yes, and just looking at Hezbollah in itself in terms of regrouping, and clearly Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the charismatic person that he was, and it was a setback, obviously, with the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, as was the case with Ismail Haniya in Iran as well. But just looking at Hezbollah and the ability to regroup and to fill that leadership vacuum that has now been left by the assassination of Nasrallah.
Exactly, because Hezbollah's nature is not a party, whether it's political or military. It's not a party that depends only on one person. Uh, it is it's it is a structure where everybody can fill the place of every passing leader. However, he is even Said Hassan. He was one of the greatest leaders in the history of our region in the past 50 years in fighting against Israel. He was the leader of our liberation in 2000 and our victory in 2006. And now, whoever is coming to Hezbollah, uh, of course, we're still used to this is said, the charisma of Said Hassan, but Hezbollah itself, I don't think it will have that effect. Of course, it has faced a very big uh, losses in this war over the past few months, but as you said, the regrouping is looking that it's easy for Hezbollah, the reconnection with its fighters in south, throwing rockets every day to the occupied Palestinian land, fighting IDF, one of the biggest armies in the world. And these villages looks like everything is going is being rebuilt even during this hard war.
Well, definitely, and I think, like you've pointed out, is that leadership vacuum can be filled very, very easily, as we've seen in the case of Hamas as well, with the assassination of Ismail Haniya, Yahya Sinwar, obviously taking. And I know, we know that this occupying entity fears Yahya Sinwar a lot more than what they even feared Ismail Haniya, and I'm sure Hezbollah obviously will fill that gap very, very soon. Just to understand what's happening on the ground itself, the people of Lebanon, what are they experiencing right now, Ibrahim?
Okay. To be honest, this general of support from people to Hezbollah is wasn't even expected. It's a huge. Hezbollah is gaining a very big public support within the Lebanese. I'm not only talking about Shias or Muslims. There's a general support, is a wide support of for Hezbollah along the Lebanese. Because Israel is doing crimes more than even we see in 2006. In 2006, 1,200 Lebanese were killed in 33 days. Now there's more than 1,900 Lebanese killed in this war, in this 10 days or 11 days war. Uh, on the ground, the situation is a bit hard because people we have more than 1 million people got displaced. Some of them went to Syria. Some of them are facing some uh, difficulties in renting houses because we don't have that the number of houses in Lebanon. Some of them, more than 800 centers or schools, are now having more than half a million of displaced Lebanese people, whether from South Bekaa or southern suburbs of Beirut. So, from the humanitarian side, it's a hard. We're talking about a hard situation, but from the kind of support of the resistance, support of Hezbollah, uh, national unity against Israel, against even occupying 1 meter square of our land, we can say that there is a unity among the Lebanese people against Israel.
Yes, and just looking at it, just in terms of a wider regional dynamics that are playing out. Now, we know obviously Hamas, Hezbollah has been there to support the Gaza cause for a very, very long time. We've seen Ansarullah, we've seen it in Yemen, we've seen it with the Houthis as well. Syria, we've seen levels of support come through from Iraq as well, threatening obviously some of the American bases that are there who are supporting this occupying entity. And just in terms of an escalation into a wider regional conflict, apart from countries like Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and also looking at Lebanon as well. But a great disappointment has been the rest of the Arab world, looking at countries like Egypt, the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, Jordan. These countries have come under the radar as well. And just as far as that escalation is concerned, we've seen condemnation come through. We've seen statements come through from some of these Gulf countries, from the leadership in Jordan as well, expressing concern on what is now taking place in Lebanon. But apart from that, we're not seeing a lot more.
We're not even expecting more, to be honest. We can't expect more from a US backed governments, US backed regimes. At the end, we are being killed by an American weapons, and we don't expect from the Americas allies in the region to give more. We're expecting, we're even since before the beginning of the war, we were saying here among the Lebanese that even if a war has started, we don't expect more than statements because we know them. We have tried them before in 2006. We have tried them for a year in Gaza where 40,000 people were killed. Nothing. They did nothing. They closed the borders. There's no courage among the Arab regimes to say no for US. So what about Israel? We don't. To be honest, the only thing that I can say is that we are not even in shock. This is what expect from regimes. Any regime in the world that is backed by the U.S. We expect it. We expect the same reaction from them toward any crime that Israel do. Statements.
Well, Ibrahim, let's leave it at that. But obviously, we will continue following developments. And as I mentioned, something big is likely to happen in South Africa, and I'm sure many parts around the world to commemorate October the 7th. And it's not only about Gaza now; it's about the people of Lebanon and Syria, and wherever else this aggression is taking place, possibly even in Yemen as well. So we will continue following developments as a media organization as well. But for now, we thank you. We do appreciate you taking time out, and I know it's difficult moment for you, but obviously we continue praying for you. We're making dua for the Almighty to grant you people strength to cope under these difficult situations, but more importantly, a victory over this occupying entity, and at the end of the day, the freedom that we all are looking forward to, and the freedom of Palestine.
Thank you so much. And again, I would thank the support of all the free world from South Africa, as you said, to Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and all over the world. There is a big support among people, but not among regimes. Thank you so much.
All the best. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Ibrahim Zayat joining us this morning, Lebanese news producer, just providing an overview on the critical situation that is evolving in Beirut at this point in time. 1 million people that have been displaced as well. And I see I've just got a message that's come through on my screen from someone calling themselves a humanitarian, saying, I am 70 in Michigan, hate the USA, and your biggest fan. Well, we thank you. We thank you, humanitarian, for that message, and continue staying with us and tuning in to Salam Media. The time is just gone at 9:38, and we are now going to be focusing after the break on the solidarity organizations that are going to be leading some very, very powerful pro-Palestinian walks for freedom, and also some of the other developments that will be taking place ahead of October the 7th. And just to remind you once again, Salam Media dedicating the entire day to the commemoration of 1 year of this genocide that has unfolded in Gaza and now extended to Lebanon.